Hi, I'm John Byrne with Poets and Quants. Thanks for joining us again. This is the third in our series of 3 live stream events, all exploring the MBA, the doorway to changing careers. This is going to be a really fun panel because we have 3 Kelley alums who have successfully made interesting transitions. I'd even say dramatic transitions. And let me just introduce them right off the top. Jennifer Solomon, who, believe it or not, was a riding instructor. That's right, she taught other people how to ride a horse, which remains a great hobby, and is now working in consumer goods at General Electric in Louisville. Welcome.
Thank you for having me.
And then we have David Kay. And David was, at one time in his life, a personal trainer in a fitness center, right?
Yep.
Who did some work in a startup before coming to Kelley. And David now works for a very well-known company. I think a lot of people know it. It's Microsoft in finance.
Yes, that's right.
And then we have Evelyn Wang, who had worked in Shanghai before coming to the United States as a mechanical engineer, had a product management job at Eaton.
Yes.
And has used the Kelley MBA to transition into something new.
Yeah, strategy in Cummins.
That's right. Strategy at Cummins. And we'll talk about their transitions and how Kelley enabled them to happen. So let's just go to you, Jennifer.
Sure.
What made you decide to get an MBA in the first place?
Absolutely. So teaching horseback riding, of course, is something that's a little bit unique, and I absolutely loved it. It was kind of my childhood passion. And once I started working at this equestrian center, I realized pretty early on that while it was physically challenging, I was building my communication skills. I didn't necessarily have that intellectual stimulation that was going to be something to perpetuate me forward for the long run. So I always knew in the back of my head that I wanted to go back to school. After a knee injury, I switched and started working at an audio tech company for a couple of years.
Wait a minute. You were thrown from that horse, weren't you?
So ironically, it was snowboarding of all things. So just a total wrench in that, right?
Okay.
So I started working at this audio tech firm and quickly realized I liked analytics, and it was something I wanted to develop a better business acumen in. And I was sort of teaching myself as I was going. So I realized that getting an MBA would definitely be the best next step for me to figure out what I wanted to do and then how I could do it.
David, how about you? Why the MBA?
Yeah, I mean, in a nutshell, working at a startup, you wear many, many hats, and the startup that I was working at was by no means run scientifically. So there was a lot of chaos, a lot of trial by fire, and learning as we go, and that was a great experience, but I definitely knew that I wanted to learn a bit more about business and learn how to run a company, different frameworks you can apply, different strategies and things you can use to solve these types of common problems. So that's really what inspired me to go back to school.
And your startup was doing what?
It was in the healthcare space, so it was a holistic health and wellness center, which is where I was a trainer as well as wearing all the different hats that you'd have to wear for any bootstrapped business.
Absolutely. You kind of do everything.
Exactly.
Yeah. And Evelyn, how about you? Now, why did you decide you needed an MBA?
At that time, I was a project manager in Eaton, and I just made a transfer for about 1 year, and it is kind of difficult to make another step. I was thinking about changing to marketing.
Right.
It's harder to make internally, and the market is down at that time, so it's hard to find a job outside. And I found examples of MBAs make career switch, and I think this might be a right choice for me. So I came here.
Right. And we found out earlier that 90% of the current students have come here actually to make a career switch. What was the most difficult part of transitioning?
So I think the most difficult part in transitioning careers was just that earlier on, it was very much an entrepreneurial environment for me. So going from a much smaller business into a large organization that has various different processes in place was something to definitely get used to. So that was, I think, realizing how long it can take to make decisions was a big surprise to me.
Right.
Yeah.
Evelyn, how about you?
So there's a general concept of 3 things you can do for the career change. One is location, one is function, one is industry.
Right.
I changed all of them.
All
But,
three?
Yeah.
Function, industry, and
Location.
geography.
Yeah. The rule of thumb, you should choose three or two of the three, not all of them. But I found like location is the most difficult one, especially for international students.
Right.
Because we are facing completely different environment where we are speaking second language. And cultural shock is quite impactful to us. I think Kelley did very well because our resource is very accessible, and I get a lot of help and support from faculties.
Right.
Should I see an example?
Yeah.
Yeah, so for example, I'm involved in Business Academy. Other than academic support from the Academy, I also have support from our Academy Director, Josh. He introduced his classmate back in my first year, and who is also she is also a Chinese, make a successful career switch from mechanical engineer to the marketing. And I get a lot of coach from her. And at that time, at first I kind of very depressing because a lot of challenges. Because of her coach, I feel so much better and very motivated and get through the first year and will learn American culture and learn how Chinese can adapt to this new environment.
Yeah, because you're making a cultural transformation as well as a career transformation.
Yeah.
Which makes it even more difficult.
Yes, it is.
And with that other student, you had a role model who had done it, right?
Yeah.
And who could relate to you entirely.
Yeah. For the student model, and mostly is our alumni in the past years, who successfully transiting from international background to the current position. I think in Cummins also have a lot of international alumni, from Kelley.
Right.
We can also extend our help, who can also extend help when I'm currently working in Cummins.
Right.
I got a lot of help. I think this is the power of Kelley too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So David, talk a little bit about the elements of the Kelley program that helped kind of shape your new path.
Yeah, it was a big change for me in terms of career, scale of organization, just the type of people I was interacting with. So I think where Kelley really prepared me the most was twofold. One was on the actual technical skills that I wanted to develop. So whether it was finance or data analytics or operations, these were frameworks, models, even keyboard shortcuts in Excel, things like that that actually do make a difference in terms of being able to execute in the daily kind of rhythms of your job. But then more than that, it was culturally really helping me, to be transparent. When I came into the program, I had a severe case of impostor syndrome, thinking, coming from a small business, no real pedigree in terms of my job or education. And so the career services and faculty, in addition to teaching me the skills I needed to get beyond that, they really helped coach me on understanding the value I could bring and crafting my pitch and my resume and really tying all the dots together that basically paint the story of who I am today and why I can bring that value. And it was instrumental in me being able to land the job that I have today.
And your startup is based where?
Tucson, Arizona.
Okay, so you made the triple jump to geography, discipline, finance,
Yes.
right, and industry, obviously,
Yes.
and tech.
Yeah, I don't think the geography. I don't think it was quite as difficult as Evelyn's trip. But yeah, it is relocating your family and moving to a new part of the country, kind of just jumping into the deep end and figuring out how to swim.
A lot of change.
Yeah.
Jennifer, what did you find most useful in the Kelley program?
Gosh, it's hard to put your finger on just one thing. So I think kind of you touched on this just now, being able to figure out how to talk about your past experiences and really own and be proud of all of what you did before your time at Kelley. I know when I came in to meet Inc., I was like, I'm a horse trainer. What am I doing in business school? And how do I talk about that? And why are companies going to care, really?
Because some of your classmates, I would imagine you thought at least, had a head start on you, right?
Absolutely.
They were consultants, they were in finance before, they were in
Yes.
marketing jobs,
Yes.
some at big companies. So getting up to speed, I think, probably was a challenge, right?
Absolutely, and it's kind of tying into the imposter syndrome too, and do I belong here, and really figuring out, I do have strengths, and they are going to be transferable to what my next chapter is, and being able to kind of articulate that, but then also having the humility to take a step back and be like, I really need to learn finance. I really need to learn accounting, because I don't know what I'm doing in this, and really kind of figuring out how to prioritize your time to get the most out of your 2 years here, and kind of be vulnerable and lean into the process and allow yourself to grow.
Now, did all of you know exactly what you wanted to do when you stepped foot on campus? Or was that something that evolved through the program? Evelyn?
At that time, I'm not really sure. But Me Inc. actually helped us. We have a map, what is the current status we are now, and what we expect after 2 years. At that time, I write down marketing and strategy. At that time, I'm actually not confident on that. I'm just thinking that is things I want, but I'm more lean to marketing. But I ended up in the strategy, which is, I feel, better than marketing.
Yeah.
I did not look at that thing after 2 years, but one of my friends found it. I hung it in my bedroom, and she found it. She said, "See, you get there. Like, you set up your goal 2 years ago, and you actually get here." I said, "Wow, yeah, I actually made it."
It was much more directional for you. You weren't
Yeah.
completely convinced that that was what you were going to do.
As that Me
Right.
Inc. was like all the exercise we did, I was very convinced that that is the things I want to pursue.
Right.
But I'm not really think I can make there
Yeah.
until 2 years later I actually get there. I think Kelley prepared me and supported me, helped me get there.
Now, David, when you stepped on campus, did you imagine that someday you'd be working in finance at Microsoft?
No, I definitely did not. I had a vague inkling that I wanted to pursue finance. I loved working with numbers and with data, and so I knew that I was more oriented towards that path. But whether it was more of a capital markets finance job or more of a corporate finance job or maybe something completely different, I didn't really have a plan or a list of, say, target companies. And had I created one, I can guarantee you I would have, due to my imposter syndrome, would have never thought to put Microsoft on the list. And so, between the Me Inc. workshop, the academy choices that we can choose from, and how those align with your career goals, and as well as the faculty themselves and who you connect with, you have tons of opportunity to kind of create your path. And so ultimately, I more or less stayed true to the course that I envisioned, but the end result is clearly not what I expected.
Right. And Jennifer, when you came here, did you know you wanted to do marketing?
No. So I came here thinking I was going to do supply chain and operations, and that was going to be my path. And I would say even through Me Inc., I was still on that wagon. And then probably, maybe 2 or 3 weeks into the academy, as I was in our supply chain academy, and we're walking through this distribution center, and some of my classmates are so excited with conveyor belts and boxes and trucks and all of this going on. I'm like, this is a safety hazard, and I don't think I belong here. And so I realized pretty quickly that I needed to pivot and really figure out what was going to get me as excited as my classmates were looking at all of this going on. I love talking and interacting with people. I like learning about people. Marketing just kind of seemed like the right fit, especially for a consumer products company.
Now, did a coach at Kelley or someone else help you kind of really narrow down the marketing role, or what?
Yes, so I knew in working with my GCS coaches that doing a rotational program would be something that really suited me, because I like to experience different things. Again, I want to be excited when my alarm goes off in the morning, and I don't know what that looks like first year into my MBA program for my future a few years down the road. So they really helped me kind of look through different marketing-focused rotational programs, really let go of the supply chain and operations mentality that I had, because I sort of had a chip on my shoulder about it, that's what I came here saying I was going to do, and I need to take a step back and accept the coaching and go with what feels right.
How long did it take you to change your mind?
Officially change my mind probably into a good 3 or 4 months.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I can be stubborn. And so, but one of my coaches was very persistent, and she would sit down with me and say, what do you really want? And I knew the answer. And what's going to make you happy going to work every day? And she just kept pushing me and asking the questions that, quite frankly, I probably didn't want to necessarily hear on a weekly basis, but ultimately they helped me end up in a role that's really well suited for me.
What do you think the hardest part, David, of making a transition is? Is it learning the language? Is it getting the chance to get yourself in front of the right people and make the best impression? What is the hardest part of making a career transition?
I mean, for me, there's two pieces. There's the psychological element, which I've already alluded to, which was mainly the imposter syndrome and just the stress of such a drastic pivot.
Right.
Then there's obviously the more transactional elements of learning a new language, learning a new technical skill set, and learning just like the rhythm of a company, and especially a massive global company like a Microsoft or any of the Fortune 500s that come to Kelley to recruit. My entire career prior to that was a 10-person company. So when you talk about a flat structure, it doesn't get much flatter than 10 people.
And Microsoft currently employs how many?
Over 100,000.
Yeah, so you went from 10 to 100,000 plus.
Yeah, and just the finance department in Redmond that I'm a part of is over 3,000, or about 3,000 people.
Wow.
That's just finance. That's just central finance. That's not even the finance teams aligned to the different geographies or products. So it's a pretty drastic change. But again, just going back to what Kelley did to prepare us, obviously the technical skills. You can design your courses around your majors and really find the classes that fit the skills you're trying to build and develop, and then the coaching that you get to help you get over things like imposter syndrome and craft your pitch and your story and really understand, what is going to make you want to get up every day and go to work, and how do you connect all those dots between what you've done and where you'd like to be.
One of the things we discussed in one of the earlier panels is sort of the care and feeding of people in the program. Do you have a sense, did you have a sense that people were really invested in your success? And how important was that to allow you to achieve your goal?
I mean, I know I got very invested in the Leadership Academy, and that, I think, is a perfect example of how invested this school really can be into the people that are getting put back into the workforce, because it's really about taking a step back and helping you determine who you are as an individual and who you are as a future corporate leader, and how those two worlds can kind of intertwine. And that was, the folks over at GCS having multiple meetings with people, staying late to meet with people, meeting on the weekends. I mean, the individuals that are part of this university and organization are so willing to give their time, and I think time is probably one of the most precious things you can give to somebody.
True.
And they very much and very freely give that to the students. They're encouraging, they push you when you need to be pushed, but they're also there for you when you need the pressure removed a little bit as well.
And Evelyn, you felt that as well?
Yeah, actually, I think other than Leadership Academy, of course, GCS helped me a lot. I have very special cases like Associate Director from BMA, Laura. I think what she done is not her job description. It's not job requirement. Mm-hmm. She took me out to the branch, took me out to the country club to help me to understand what is American culture. It was my first time go to country club. I said, oh, Americans doing these things. This is not true.
There are no country clubs in Shanghai?
No.
No, okay.
I'm not really sure there is a country club there. So it was the first time I realized, it is really completely different culture here, and work style, lifestyle is different. As an international student, the location change is not only to your professional life, it's also to your personal life.
Absolutely.
I think a lot of international students feel we do not belong in here.
Yeah.
But I think Laura make me feel actually there is people carrying us and helping us.
Right.
So make us feel better here.
Yeah. And as an international student, you have a whole set of other challenges.
Yeah.
I mean, one of the significant worries out there is if you come to the United States for an education, will you be able to stay here?
Yeah.
And now you were able to get an H-1B visa through Cummins.
Yes.
They sponsored you.
Yes.
And you got one relatively easy, right?
Yeah. I was quite lucky for that.
Okay.
First, because Kelley gave us a chance to H-1B application earlier. It's just after our graduation we can apply it as long as you have enough credit earned, so learning credit.
Yeah.
So I earned that enough credit. And Cummins is very cultural diversified, encouraging foreign students. So we are still sponsor international students. So after graduation, my petition for the H-1B was applied and I got picked. And it is not really that easy. My file was actually referenced. They asked us to provide actual evidence for that. So company actually found the lawyer and they help us to provide actual documents, and finally it is approved.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that was essential to your transition, right?
Yeah, it is very, very important for international students, and it's a very hard thing, and we cannot do anything.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I also wonder, to what extent you found out something about yourself that you didn't know before you entered the MBA program. And maybe it was a result of all the introspection that you might do, not only in Me Inc., but through your peer coach, through your executive coach, through the journey that you've already taken. Jennifer, what have you found out about yourself that you didn't know before?
So much. I just feel like a totally different person than when I first came here. I feel like I have found such a sense of confidence in who I was, who I am, and who I'm going to be moving forward. I feel like I have learned how to navigate my own, not only navigate my own path, but create my own path moving forward. And I think that kind of trickles just not only in my professional life, but personal passions too. I did my yoga teacher training while I finished my MBA, and part of that was pressure or coaching, I should say, from the folks at the school saying, yes, you're getting this great career path that you're focusing on, but you have to do what's right for you too. And kind of learning how to balance both of those things that, career motivated, you want to keep climbing the ladder, but you also want to do what feels right in your heart too. And I think Kelley really gave me the opportunity to figure out what is making my heart beat and how to kind of continue that moving forward.
David, how about you?
Yeah, I mean, as I mentioned earlier, I'm somewhat of an analytical person, just my brain is wired that way. So for me, learning to trust in a process, or even for lack of a better term, maybe there is not a true process, but just having that trust to take a leap of faith, and looking back, everything will connect, but at the time you can't always see that. So really, through a lot of stressful nights and worrying about the different interviews and all the different things that happen as part of an MBA program, just really learning to have some faith in my own abilities and my own ability to commit to something and going head first into the deep end. And so coming from more of a sports and athletic background, you do a lot of work on visualization, and there's a lot of commitment, both time and effort, and working through injuries, all those types of things that take a lot of dedication and hard work, but there's usually a really well-defined timeline or end state that you're looking for. And so to move away from that into more ambiguous waters where you have to apply that mindset, but there's no guaranteed outcome, it was very stressful. And I think the MBA program here really taught me how to navigate that.
I think you overcame your imposter syndrome, don't you
Recently,
think?
yes.
I mean, you now know that you are as good as anybody else, if not better, and that you're hardly an imposter.
I'm a Kelley humble, as we like to say, but yeah, just to kind of compliment what you just said. I mean, one of the things that really solidified for me that I could bury the imposter syndrome was in my current role. And let me just preface this by saying, everyone takes a different path, so there's no right path for anyone. But that being said, there was a person on my team doing basically the same job as me, and she was former Goldman Sachs, worked in private equity, went to a very an Ivy League, very pedigree MBA program here in the States, and despite our very different courses, we are now on the same team doing the same thing. And it was just very eye-opening to me to think, here I am, and I'm able to execute in this job, and I think I'm doing a good job. So,
That's great.
In terms of that imposter syndrome, it's definitely not an issue anymore.
That's great. Evelyn, what did you learn about yourself that you didn't know before you got here?
I never think, if go back to several years, I don't think I can end up here. I have I have a friend told me in WeChat, which is kind of Instagram in China. She said she envy my life, but I said we just have different journey here. So when I look back, I think we all together learn in the same school, work in the same office, but I end up here. I feel like I really brave, make that decision, and even this is kind of adventure here. I think my work really pay me, and I end up here, making me stand out with my past peers.
Yes. I mean, I think it takes a lot of courage to come to a country where English is not your first language, your native tongue, that you've never been to before. Because when you came from Shanghai, you worked for 3 months in Milwaukee before you started the MBA program. That must have been quite a shock culturally to you. And then to learn some very difficult concepts when people are speaking English to you, and still, you're learning and you're getting accustomed to the new environment, had to be incredibly hard.
Yeah, it is that a lot of like norms I don't understand. Even now, some terms I still don't understand, like cyber language. So I still learning, and culture is quite different. I'm still not understand what is football rule.
What is football? There are a lot of people in America who don't understand football either.
I don't understand why people are so passionate about that, and it just completely different. And football in China is a completely different thing. So it's soccer. Yeah, I'm still learning and trying to get better.
In our previous panel, we had 3 second-year students. And one of the things that came up was how Kelley can make you uncomfortable and how important that is to your journey. Can you recall a time when you were in the program when you felt you were being stretched at a level where you actually felt discomfort?
Core is very discomfort.
What is?
Core. So it's a class for the first year. We have very intensive.
Oh, the integrated core. Yes.
Yeah,
the core curriculum. Right.
It's very demanding, and we have multiple tasks. So it's not only we need to achieve academically, we also need to work in our resume, doing networking, and mock interview. It's just everything.
And plus, you're getting 1 grade for the entire integrated core.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
Which is unique in MBA education.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It is very demanding and stressful. For international students, extremely, because we are just landed in here, and we just started to get know. Maybe some people still have jet lag. I'm not really sure. Maybe. And we started their very intensive classes, and everything just roll up. And all the faculty push you need to do this, do that. Still I think I came in the roundtable, 2 weeks ago. The first year students still ask me, how could you get through the first year? It is so demanding, and do you have any suggestion for that? I think that is the time Kelley really push you to the extra level.
Jennifer, what was your level of discomfort? When did it occur?
So I remember being at a interview at one of the consulting firms, and it was the night before, and I was there with some of my classmates who had some very prestigious pre-Kelley careers, and this was, it was probably January of first year, so you just get through core, you get back from winter break, you're feeling really jazzed up and ready to interview, and then it was sort of in this room of all these people, I'm like, I don't even know if I want to be a consultant. I don't know what I'm doing here. I'm networking with all these people. Am I even good at case interviewing? And so it was kind of this moment of, oh man, you need to step up right now. And I think that kind of continues throughout the interview process, throughout the recruiting process. It's just constantly figuring out how can you communicate with people about where you came from, where you want to go, but do it in an authentic way. And I think once you can get to that authentic kind of area, that's when you go from being uncomfortable to being comfortable. But I think it takes some time.
Yeah.
And I would just echo that there's a lot of introspection and changing course in your first semester, at least, if not first year, maybe even longer. But a lot of people will come to business school with an an end goal in mind, but that will change, right? I mean, you switched. And so learning to navigate your own kind of interpersonal battles that you might be having around what do I want to do, and it's really stressful. Your whole life is kind of in flux, right? You don't know where you're going to land. You don't know anything about what the future is going to look like, and it's an uncomfortable feeling. So becoming comfortable with being uncomfortable is something that Kelley really instills in us early on, but they do provide that whole support framework to really coach you and help you refine your story, which in doing so you'll learn more about yourself and kind of solidify where you think you want to be and what's the right fit for you.
Right. Now, all three of you chose an in-residence, 2-year, full-time MBA program. No shortcuts, nothing online, and that meant you also had a summer internship. Now, did all three of you intern at the companies that you're currently employed at?
Yes.
Yeah.
I did not.
Okay. So tell me about the internship experience and how that helped you decide what you wanted to do. And David, we may as well start with you since you had a different internship.
Yeah, so my internship, I basically found an opportunity through my own network, just through how it came about. It was serendipity, so to speak. And so this internship was a finance internship, and it was kind of unstructured in that it wasn't an official program that had, an assigned mentor or onboarding or anything like that. It was very much a pave your own path type of internship. But the skills that I had developed here, both on the personal side as well as the technical side, they really enabled me to land and hit the ground running, working on a variety of different projects and really learning how to be your own advocate and go out and ask for projects and ask for partner on with teams on other projects, and really try to just see the business end to end. And being able to speak that language that you acquire even in your first year. You're taking classes that cover basically every corner of what it takes to run a company. So, so my internship was a little bit maybe unusual would be the word compared to more structured internships, but ultimately it was a great learning opportunity, and the skills that I learned in the first year directly applied to my internship, which directly translated to experience that I could discuss and speak to when creating that full-time recruiting pitch that I was going into the second year.
Right. Jennifer?
So my internship, I went into it getting put on a brand team, which was really exciting for me because that was something that once I was set on marketing was sort of the end goal, and so I felt really fortunate to kind of get that experience right off the bat being in a rotation. I felt like I was able to really, we talk a lot about fit at Kelley and finding the right fit for you, and I think that's kind of probably standard across the board of other MBA programs too, is you want to be at the right company with the right culture. And so what was really great about my internship was I had a great team of mentors there that were not only making sure that I was the right fit for them, but that they were the right fit for me, and having open dialogue around that. And that's kind of where you go back to being comfortable, being uncomfortable. That can be an uncomfortable conversation to have with your manager. I'm not really sure if this city is for me. I'm from the Northeast. I'm in Kentucky. What am I doing? And figuring out that. And then being able to say, is this work challenging? It was. Is this something I could see myself being excited about doing every day? It was. Okay, now how do you get that offer? And really persevering and making sure that come August, that was the conversation I wanted to be having.
Now, I should tell the audience that we had breakfast together this morning, and you were telling me about an experience around a round table.
Yes.
Now, explain the round table concept here and what actually happened to you.
So the roundtables are our very first kind of interaction during our first year with recruiters and the different companies that come on campus. So there's anywhere, I would say, between 50 to 60 companies that come. You sit around a round table.
Like this?
Just like this.
Yeah.
And typically you're going around to 8 or so different companies. You're assigned about half of those companies based on your intended major. Or
How much time do you have at each table?
About 20 minutes.
20 minutes,
So
and then you
it's
get up and you go
dating.
to another table,
Yes.
right?
You are
and you meet
speed
other
dating.
companies.
Yes, and so
And
you're
different
practicing
industries or
all different industries.
Okay.
Although for the companies that are assigned to you, it's typically based on your intended major and
Okay.
academy. So you're practicing your tell me about yourself for the first time. You might be fumbling a little bit. I know I did. So one of the companies that I was assigned to is GE Appliances. And at this point in time, remember, I'm still supply chain, operations, not thinking about marketing. And so it's a marketing rotational program. And so I kind of had talked myself into practice your pitch, practice networking. Appliances, I don't know. And so my now manager was sitting there and he's like, you're not supply chain. And I'm like, you're so funny. Yeah, I am. I was like, you're gonna work for me. And I said, yeah, okay, and start like laughing out loud in my now boss's face. But he was right, and he's actually a Kelley alum too. So he was kind of able to, I think, see through some of the mental roadblocks I was facing.
And he's really your current boss,
He's really
right?
my current boss, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah,
Okay.
so it was great, and we kind of joke around about it now, and he said, oh, supply chain, huh? But I will say, to give a good plug for supply chain, working at a manufacturing company,
Yeah.
I understand the business a lot more than I would have had I not had that experience.
Yeah, I'm sure of that.
Yeah.
And Evelyn, how about your internship? How instrumental was it in making your career change?
So I have a very wonderful but challenging internship because strategy is completely different from engineering.
Right.
It's much more high level. And Cummins is a really good company because in my internship I learned the culture is very diversified. So in my class we have 4 interns for corporate strategy. Oh, five people, all from different countries. And
Wow.
American actually is the majority in our team.
Wow. Really?
And Cummins is really welcome to the international students and very supportive. Other than that, I really like the culture there. Other than that, I think the work is very meaningful, and I think I made an impact to that. At the end of my internship, I'm supposed to do the presentation to the president of our business unit, but he is not available. And later my boss called me and said, oh, do you have time? When I was in school, our president have time. You can come, we can do the presentation. I said, sure. So I came back to the company and do a presentation to our president, and he is going to be our COO now. Okay, and in the next month. Mm-hmm. So it's a very meaningful, very meaningful internship. So I like the work style, like company culture, and in the same time, the skills that I learned in the internship also I think is very important.
Right.
And it is not only limited to our company. It's also can apply to the other industry. So at the end, I'm not really sure I'm going to get a full-time return offer. I was thinking, it's fine. Everything I learned here, I can apply to other industry,
Right.
other companies, which is very good. But I got a return offer, so I'm happy too.
It's awfully nice to, I think, to convert an internship into a full-time offer because you don't have to search anymore.
Yeah.
When David came back, he had to do a whole search again, right?
Yes, yeah, I didn't have an opportunity to.
Yeah.
They didn't really even have a program to
Yeah.
hire from an internship. So,
Yeah.
I had to hit the ground running, and I'd learned from my first year going through the process recruiting that, to your point, you really want to try to secure that as soon as possible, just for your own sanity,
Sure.
especially dealing with all the other priorities of school.
Mm-hmm.
It's there's no hiding it. It's stressful and challenging to go through recruiting while you're also taking classes and traveling for interviews while doing exams and things like that. So trying to secure that, a full-time offer in the first semester of your second year is definitely a good point of advice for everyone out there.
Yeah. Now, there are a couple of elements of an MBA program that I would think would shape your ability to make a career transition. One would be student-run clubs and organizations, and the other might be experiential learning opportunities where you're getting some experience in the industry or the function that you ultimately want to work for. Did either of those two inform your journey?
So I was part of our executive leadership team, which we called Slate, which was a great experience for me because it kind of solidified that I do want to move forward in a path that involves working with other people, hopefully leading a team at some point, and really creating strategy for an organization. So that definitely kind of helped put me in the right direction.
Right.
As far as the kind of hands-on experience from the academies, it really told me what I didn't want to do, which I think is just as valuable as really figuring out what you do want to do.
Absolutely.
And being able to figure that out early on in the game was really beneficial for me. Another kind of thing that I got involved with was called Kelley. So it was a consulting group where we worked and managed a team of undergraduate students that worked with local minority and women-owned businesses, which was just an amazing experience, and kind of spoke to me on wanting to have something that I'm passionate about and really feel like I'm giving back and meaningful, and figuring out how can I do that in my career and also outside of my career. So
Right.
getting involved in different affinity groups going back into your career, and kind of knowing that that's an outlet where you can meld the two worlds together is helpful.
David, how about you?
Yeah, I would echo that. I would say the academy experience. So I was in the Strategic Finance Academy, and that academy is really focused on corporate finance and how do you optimize a company's basically all of their financial elements, whether it's cash, whether it's their balance sheet, or even more strategic finance around things like capex decisions and things of that nature. We had actual opportunities to work on cases where we would have the actual participants from the case. So if you think of like an M&A project, we actually had the CFO of the target company and the CFO of the acquiring company, and these were older. They'd already merged or been acquired, but at this point in time, they came to the campus to walk us through the case, really do some true role playing around what the exchanges were like, what the analysis was like, and then we had to do our own analysis and pitch to them, either a buy or no buy kind of decision. And oftentimes we would get completely, our thesis would get pretty much stripped down, and we'd really learn directly from the people who were in the trenches what it's like. And so that the experience of going through that, as well as the skills we picked up along the way to actually drive those analyses, were super helpful and basically critical for me getting to where I am today.
Now, Evelyn, other than the country club that you visited, were you a member of a club here, or did you have an experiential learning opportunity that helped you make this transition?
Yeah, I actually I was in the leadership of Global Business Society and Asia MBA Association. So in this experience, I think what I have learned is how to make impact as an international student, because I think there is some misconception about the Chinese, about the Asian culture, and also we want to educate international students what is American culture, how to adapt to there.
Sure.
From business perspective, I also initiate a talk from retired general manager from Eaton. I invited him to Kelley, and he did a speech about a big M&A case he did back in China. I think it's like 11 billion acquisition. So it is a huge event there. I think it's a lot of learning and impact to impact to students.
So if you had to do it all over again, number one, would you do it? And number two, would you change anything about it? Jennifer?
Hands down would do it again. If they would take me back, I would have done a third year and a fourth year.
You didn't want to leave, did you?
I didn't.
So once you traded your riding boots for your high heels,
Yes.
you wanted to stay in high heels, but you wanted to stay here.
I loved my experience here. But if I were to do something differently, gosh, I feel like I did it the right way. I think I was surrounded by people that just were there for me, students, the faculty, the staff, that I just kind of hit the ground running when I got here, and I don't think I would do it any different.
And you needed to know that you weren't meant for supply chain.
I know, I needed to know that. I
Yeah.
needed someone to tell me that and help me figure it out on my own, and I don't think I'd do it any different.
Evelyn, how about you? Would you do anything different, and would you do it all over again?
I will do all over again, and I wish I would do earlier.
Earlier
Yeah.
in your career?
Yes, earlier in my career. I think I missed some years. If I do it earlier, the impactful would be more.
Yeah.
I think all the knowledges I learned, the skills that I built here actually can accelerate your career movement, improvement, and also impact myself to be better myself. If I do it earlier, the impact will be longer.
That's interesting. So
Yeah.
you would have preferred to start earlier.
Yeah.
And Jennifer would have preferred to stay longer and later. Okay, David, how about you?
I can definitely echo starting earlier. As much as I love Kelley, I don't think I could have done more years here, but that's more a testament to me just wanting to get back into the workforce. But yeah, starting earlier, just building this skill set, the personal reflection that goes on, doing that a little bit earlier, kind of growing earlier in my career. But at the same time, with hindsight, everything there'd be changes, but at the same time, you might not be who you are today if you hadn't had that extra experience before the
That's really
MBA.
true.
That being said, for me, I think the one thing that I would change is just if I could go back in time and tell myself to kind of get over the imposter syndrome, because ultimately it didn't matter, but at the time it was a major hurdle I had to get over, and spent many hours in coaching with the career services and my academy lead trying to be my pep rally squad, so to speak. And so going back and just assuring myself that it would all work out would be the one thing I'd change.
Your pep rally squad or your personal board of directors, whatever it is, it helped you make the transition, and that's all that matters, right?
Definitely.
All right. Jennifer, David, Evelyn, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
Really appreciated our conversation. For all of you out there, this was the third in a series of live streams today, all about the MBA as being the doorway to changing your career. This is John Byrne with Poets and Quants on the campus of the Indiana University at the Kelley School of Business. Thanks for watching.